Welcome to the runners-up for the winners of the 2021 Best Bionicles of the Year, as according to me and to a degree the Bionicle community from those who submitted and shared their thoughts. Essentially what this video is a sort of follow-up to the last video I did, which was about the winners, the 1 through 10 of the Best MOCs of 2021, that are Bionicle MOCs of course. This one here is just all the stuff that either A, didn't quite make it onto the list, or B, the MOCs that were very heavily submitted by you guys. I did, of course, put a call out fairly recently for, what you guys thought were the best MOCs of the year. And so these are what you guys said, as well as some stuff that was some of my personal favorites that just didn't quite fit the grade. So there you go. There will, of course, be links in the description to all the MOCs that I talk about in today's episode, but there'll also be a link in the description to that other video with the actual winners of the 2021 Best MOCs of the Year, long title. So if you want to watch that, you may as well watch that before you watch this one. There's a link in the description so you can head right there right away. So without further ado, let's begin. Of course, these MOCs are in no particular order, but the very first MOC we're going to be speaking about today is by Moko, and this is called Inferno. So I adore this. This was probably like the number 11 on the official top 10 actual winners for 2021. But yeah, just didn't quite make it, but I adore this. I think the head design is just insane. From some angles here, you can see how this sort of like face is forming. And at first, I couldn't tell what these pieces are, but if you actually head over to the Flickr post, Moko actually does have a link to a YouTube video where he really heavily kind of breaks down the MOC. So be sure to check that out because it was actually really fun to watch and really cool to see just sort of breakdowns of it and everything. The head design itself is just using a bunch of flame pieces, and they're just sort of orientated in a way that it kind of forms eyes and just sort of, kind of forms this shape of a head. But man, it really does look like this head has just been lit on fire. It's insane. Like, until I actually saw him actually break it down in the video, which I'm not going to show because that's his video, go check it out. I couldn't see how it worked, and it's just so cool to achieve that in Lego. It really does blow me away. As for the rest of this MOC here, there's just some fantastic shaping and also quite an impressive amount of posability. I kind of imagine that this sort of design was a little bit more, restrictive. It just couldn't move. It was more of just sort of like a statue of sorts, but you can get some crazy posability out of it. And honestly, I expect nothing less of Moko. He's just, amazing. One of the best builders of our time, honestly. So yeah, just love the general kind of shaping, specifically like on the torso. Also love that little hint of flame that's on there. Some of those macaroni pieces being used on the torso look great. The leg design itself is just phenomenal, and I love the little subtle hints of other colors on like the feet, the knees. There's sort of that belt design as well, because this MOC kind of just does look primarily sort of black, but it's nice to see little hints like that do sort of shine through. So yeah, it's really cool. This is just a fantastic MOC by Moko, and certainly his best one this year in my opinion. The next MOC we have is by Matt Goldberg, and this is called Alien Pollination. So just a phenomenal bee design on this one, and the fact that it uses some of the insectoid wing pieces is really fitting because of course they're meant to resemble the wings of a bug or an insect or whatever, and it's perfect. I love the inclusion of that. I think that's just not necessarily a nice part use. It's using it for what it's intended for, but it just works really well. The actual bee design itself is just brilliant, looks perfect for a bee, but I think what really shines is the way that he's kind of blocked out the colors. The fact that the yellow and the red are really sort of in definitive chunks really does make it look like the stripes that you would see on a bee. There's just quite a clear distinction between it, which is actually quite cool. And yeah, just in general, a very sort of realistic and really well done bee design there. I also quite enjoy this flower as well. Really bright, strong, powerful colors, and just a really nice scale that obviously fits the bee very well. And enough that it's very obviously a flower, but it also quite effectively looks like an alien flower, which is, sort of the point here. I really like that. And using all of those purple Picari Onawa masks there to sort of form the sort of, I guess, kind of like bulbs of this flower or the petals, or I know it's an alien flower, you might not even call it that, but it's just a nice little part use there. And yeah, just this is such a strikingly beautiful MOC, not only from its color scheme, but with its techniques and just how effective it is. It's really, really cool, and certainly one of Matt's better MOCs this year, and probably one of his better MOCs in general. This one really shines out for me. I really, really do like this. Let's move over to the next MOC now. This is a MOC by Cyanova32, and this is called Marendar version 32.3. So yeah, fantastic looking mock here, and this one was suggested by a few different people here. I really enjoy the head design on this one, especially with some of the cool edits that that Signova's done here, and he's pretty good with his sort of computer-generated edits there, so definitely check out some of his other stuff. Of course, there's links in the description below. But the head design here very much has a sort of Michael Bay Transformers aesthetic to it, and I think the rest of the mock does as well, which is, I think, an aesthetic that actually translates pretty well into Bionicle, and this is just a really nice example of that there, so I think that's pretty cool. I quite enjoy the arm designs here. There's something about them that's a little bit more sort of like beefy and strong, and some of the sort of like orange like wires and different things, tubing or whatever, that's sort of flowing through it. There's something about it that really gives it this aesthetic of a sort of like really sort of upgraded robot that has almost sort of, I don't know, like superhuman level strength of sorts. And I don't know, there's this really sort of like kind of powerhouse look to it, which I think is just quite visually impressive and looks really cool. And certainly some of these shots here of him like holding the floating Howl mask there is pretty cool. And there's just like a really nice sort of silhouette and kind of like bruiser kind of beefcake look to this character, which I think is really cool. The guns are also awesome. I think they have a very sort of definitive, really cool look to them, which I quite enjoy personally. But yeah, phenomenal stuff on this mock here, and just a really well executed mock. On to the next one, we're going to be talking about a mock by VelociJACktor, and this is called Exogen Destroyer versus Shin Gahdok. So this was built for the BioCup, and the idea was of sort of kind of mixing certain things in with Bionicle and sort of reimagining a set of sorts. And the idea here, of course, is a sort of, you know, a kaiju battling a Jaeger sort of Godzilla concept, and it's really well done. So I love the idea of taking one of the Borok Queens and taking the Exotoa and reimagining it as a kaiju Godzilla, you know, Jaeger mech sort of thing. It's not only just a really clever and fun concept, but a really well executed one too. The Exotoa mech itself is really fun, and you know, it's nice to see it be a little bit sort of more spindly and thin and smaller in comparison to Gahdok here. And I don't know, because to me it kind of gives you that sort of David and Goliath sort of storytelling look of, you know, the sort of slightly smaller underdog that's fighting just this colossal, impossible beast, and they still manage to win because they use their creativity and their smarts. You know, that's really cool. So really nice design choices there to sort of tell that story almost. I also enjoy a lot of the building techniques on the you know, Godzilla Gahdok here. The neck design is awesome, using a whole bunch of those feet pieces that came on good amount of Hero Factory sets there. Just the way that they sort of angle into each other like that, combined with those teeth pieces to sort of fill in some of those gaps, is phenomenal. That's just such a beautiful sort of curvature to it. Those pieces really just sort of have there's just a beautiful sense of like shaping to it. They just sort of fuse into one and create this beautiful organic sort of flowing neck design there. It's amazing. The head design as well, using some of the head pieces from the Invasion from Below sets, is really smart because they were made to look like kaiju, weren't they? So really, really clever part use there. Well, not necessarily a clever part use, but it just similar to those insectoid wings from before, just the perfect piece to use because it's made to look that way. If a Lego piece is designed to look like something, by all means use it for that, because that was its purpose, you know? It's a good thing to do. The tail on this is also really nice. It sort of beautifully transitions from being quite thin into being a little bit thicker, and it's nice to see how the two different layers of Hero Factory bone pieces transition into just the one, just by inserting that larger tooth piece there. They beautifully sort of flow and get smaller there, which is not an easy thing to do. So that's a very nice looking design there, that's for sure. And just in general, really solid mock, and a really, really clever concept. Next up, we're going to talk about a mock by Anthony Wilson, and this is called RF-029 Scorch. So yeah, not a lot from Anthony this year, but he still hit hard with this really awesome mock, and there's just some beautiful like mechanical details to it, whether that's the way that he's designed the legs there, using some kind of larger Hero Factory bone pieces, and kind of nicely adding that little sort of curved kind of flex tube piece there with a few other little system details and things to create what's a really nice sort of mechanical robotic looking design, a sort of more unarmored design, but one that works really well for this really nice sort of industrial looking mech of sorts here, or robot, whatever it is specifically, but it looks cool. The head design is also really cool with these sort of like 4 eyes. I don't know, it's just a really funky different head design, which I quite enjoy. And again, even more awesome mechanical details with some of those macaroni pieces on the legs and on the torso, and just a really solid looking design in general. It's great to see him playing around with this more just really nice industrial kind of like factory underbelly of a robot sort of design, an unarmored look of sorts. It's always an aesthetic that I just quite enjoy seeing, and I think it's been expertly done here by Anthony. So yeah, really, really solid work. I also quite enjoy some little subtle details, like the inclusion of the flames on the flamethrower that he's got, and the inclusion of those little printed flame tiles on the barrels on his back and also on that flamethrower. Just little subtle stuff like that I think actually goes a long way. Little subtle details always help, I think. So love your work there, Anthony. Great job. On to the next mock now. This is a mock by Kubik, and this is called Eliminator. So Eliminator was one of the original Dark Hunters that was made for that age-old contest where a bunch of fans submitted some of their own mocks, and they became the official sort of images for these actual canon characters. Now, of course, the original Eliminator is a little bit outdated. It kind of uses a lot of older pieces and older techniques, but I think it still holds up. It's still a pretty cool looking mock. And so of course, Kubik here wanted to reimagine it in his own style, which I believe this was for a specific collab as well. But this one certainly stood out from that collab. I think it was really cool. And this was one that a lot of people actually sent in as well. So it's a cool one. So I like how he's very, very drastically reimagined Eliminator here. Of course, the original one is more sort of humanoid and standing up on two legs, whereas this is a little bit more non-humanoid and is more of a sort of like, I don't know, dog or animal of sorts. It's a really nice way of doing it, and I always enjoy seeing that where people completely reimagine a concept, and it's nice to see when they get it done in such a way that it's almost better than the original, and that's really cool. That's always you've done well when you've done something like that, that's for sure. So what I love is the sort of like disc launcher things on the back of this creature here. The original one, of course, did have this concept, but it was done in a fairly different way. And I love what Kubik's done here. I think the inclusion of some of those trans-purple, like, egg things from, I think it was Galaxy Squad, or Galaxy Squad, I believe, is the old LEGO theme there. But yeah, the inclusion of those and a few other sort of more, I don't know, machine-like pieces with your tires and different things, and combined with some of the wiring and these other little kind of glass containers and stuff, there's something very kind of mad scientist-y about it, or this sort of like crazy cyborg creature of sorts, and it's really cool. And I don't know, I kind of get that sense across a lot of this mock of this really nice sort of, cyborg kind of mechanical organic hybrid of sorts. It's just a really nice way of approaching the character, and I think it's really cool. Plus the way all these discs are being, either fired out or just are sort of attached on there with those larger antenna pieces, just looks cool. It's just a really nice, just visually pleasing way of displaying it. I think it's really cool. I kind of like the idea that they're kind of firing out of sorts. I guess that's how I interpret this, but regardless, it looks cool. Could even just be some sort of like energy conduit of sorts, maybe like static electricity dances around it or something. I don't know, but either way, it's cool. I also enjoy these back legs here, just the weird, crazy shape of them. It's cool. But I think my favorite detail is the head design. So it still uses that exact same Krana that the original one did, but the head design's been really drastically changed. Of course, it has this more sort of like angled sort of kind of curve to it of sorts, and there's now these sort of eyes on the front there. It's really unique. So I like that he still paid homage to the original, but really drastically changed it too, and kind of changed it for the better. There's just something so unique and different about this, and honestly, I think that's what I was kind of looking for when I picked out a lot of these mocks, and I imagine it's what a lot of other people were looking for when they sort of sent some of these mocks in as well, is just really drastically different, unique stuff that you don't see every day, and this mock certainly fits that category, so it's pretty cool. So that's that mock. This is this mock. This is by Rockmonster 2000, and this is called Oni. So yeah, I would have noticed this in the thumbnail, of course, but I thoroughly enjoyed this mock. I love the head design, using a lot of these larger Technic panel pieces there to sort of form like eyebrows, and just kind of gives a nice shape to the head as well. And the way that he's added all these different teeth pieces to give it this just really distinct sort of toothy grin there. It's a really striking head design there, and the inclusion of the bush and those swords at the top there. Lovely little details. Overall, there's just a nice sort of stout kind of awesomeness to this character. I don't know, he's just really fun, and there's just a lot of character packed into this, which is always difficult to do, really, to instantly convey a sense of the way you built it is not always an easy thing to do, you know. Looking at this, I see a more sort of like cheeky devil of sorts, so yeah, it's cool. The like kind of, I don't know, interesting weapon that he has as well. Very sort of system heavy, but works pretty nicely and is pretty different from what you see with more typical weapons. And I also quite enjoy what he's done on the torso here, tying together this cloth of sorts. I don't really know what that is. It's not an official Lego piece by any means, but it looks cool. And then adding all these different dark orange sort of cylinder system pieces there to form sort of like a skirt of sorts. Really, really cool. So yeah, a lot of fantastic stuff going on in this mock, and just really well done. Very cool. This next runner-up in the best mocks of 2021 is by Redverse, and this is called Dashou. Certainly something that stands out so much on this is the big old corrupted hand. One is just massive, and obviously it stands out. But two, I love the idea of just how that's been designed. The fantastic use of all these different like tentacle and tail pieces and claws and different things, combined with this very, very smooth, very heavily armored arm, which uses a lot of Technic panel pieces, some of the kind of like thigh armor pieces from the Star Wars Ultra build sets, all sorts of different stuff. It's just a really solid looking arm design, and just a really fun like aesthetic or idea to give it this really massive, overpowering, big old arm there that is very visually different to the rest of the actual kind of body and the other arm and the legs on this character here. So I love that idea, and I love how it's been executed. It sort of perfectly illustrates that of a more sort of corrupted demonic arm of sorts. So this mock also uses a non-official mask here. This is from this sort of more obscure set called Magnus that actually came out in 2005, if you're curious. That's what it says here on Flickr. So that mask there is not an official Lego piece, but does kind of look like one. It's pretty cool, doesn't it? It's sort of, I think, is nicely integrated in with a whole bunch of your typical system Bionicle pieces there. And of course, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with including a custom mask or a few custom pieces if you want, really. Like, now that we don't have any new construction sets or themes coming out from Lego, there's kind of nothing wrong with ordering a few new pieces if that helps get the creative juices flowing. Why not? It's certainly something to play around with, and it's been done flawlessly here. I also really enjoy the fact that the legs and the arms on this mock here, of course, the more thin arm, that just exactly that they're very thin and spindly when you compare it to the other one. So it gives it this nice sense of sort of asymmetry or kind of contrast in that sense. But it also helps it actually hold up its own weight. The fact that the actual body and the limbs are very kind of thin, don't use a lot of pieces, would of course help it actually support its own weight, because there's just not much that's heavy there. Of course it's going to be able to hold up that much stuff, right? So yeah, I think that's really cool. And also the inclusion as well that sort of flows into the body of that very large like Power Miner's wheel piece. Just the way that there's sort of like those sort of spiky rivets on the edge of it there, it really does look like that sort of, I don't know, inky ooze or whatever it is that forms this arm is just sort of like oozing over into the rest of the body. It's just a really nice way of doing it there. It's pretty cool. So yeah, all in all, fantastic looking mock, really, really nice, awesome techniques on it, and just very different and very unique, which is always good. This is another mock that was very heavily submitted by a few different people. This is called Von Nebula. It's a revamp of Von Nebula, and this is by EMS Mocks. So I really like the kind of different take on Von Nebula's staff here, using a bunch of those Exoforce robot arm pieces there to form what was originally that sort of like shadow globe thing. Just a nice way of doing it. And with some of these images here, he sort of edited in like shadow or whatever sort of wisps are that's coming out of it there, which I think looks pretty cool. Just a different way of doing that stuff, which is nice. I also like seeing on this Von Nebula a bit of a bigger, larger take on it that's a lot more sort of, just there's not as many gaps in it, which the original one kind of does have a lot of. So it's nice to see Von Nebula reimagined in a more sort of well-shaped, well-defined, just sort of better way in that sense, which is cool. And it's nice to see those spikes not just sort of on his shoulders, but actually all throughout the mock, which actually works quite nicely. I always enjoyed those spiky pieces, so it's cool to see it just all throughout the mock here. It works really well. I also quite enjoy the foot design on this one here, using just sort of like a spikier foot design, which is very fitting for the sort of big bad evil guy of the first wave of Hero Factory. Just, anything you can do to add more spikes or more of a sort of evil flair to the character certainly makes sense, right? So little stuff like that I think works pretty well. It's also nice to see that the same sort of hunch that the original Von Nebula had. A hunch makes sense on a villain, right? So good to see that carried over here. And yeah, just in general, a really nice silhouette to this character, and just really well done. It's a good job. On to the next mock now. This is another runner-up for the 2021 Bionicle MOCs. This is by Toddrick BD, and this is the Spider-Woman. I think the colors on this are gorgeous. There's heaps here. So there's like azure, white, red, black, gray, gold, different shades of gray, some of the metallic gray, the sort of dark orange, brown. There's so many. But it's amazing how perfectly they all just flow together. It doesn't look messy. It doesn't look too colorful. It doesn't look too sort of just, I don't know, it's just visually pleasing to look at, which is quite a difficult thing to do with that many different colors. It's gorgeous. So that alone, I think, is really commendable because it can be a little bit difficult to really balance your colors like that when you're using so many. So yeah, solid work there. I also quite enjoy all these different arms. Very sort of simplistic design, but I think it works really well using some of those new, very large macaroni pieces that some people call Mickey-roni pieces because they originally came on that sort of large sort of statue Mickey and Minnie set. And then combining it with different wheel pieces, some of the different cone elements as well. It just creates a really sort of cool, curvy, smooth-looking arm design there, and seeing, so many of them on this mock here looks really nice. It looks really, really nice. I also quite enjoy the inclusion of a fairly good amount of different cloth elements, whether if it's this very furry-looking cloth element here on the shoulder, which I don't think is an official piece, this sort of chrome gold sort of cloth element here on the head, which is very cool. That could be from a Monkey Kid set. I don't know if that's been cut or modified in some fashion. I'm not too sure, but still, it's a color that does exist, at least in LEGO. And also some of the different kind of minifigure cloth elements here on the waist as well. Really, really cool. Just kind of flows nicely with the rest of the mock, and I don't know, just really stands out. It's lovely. I like too that he's holding that sort of trans blue kind of glittery bunny there, which either that came in that Harry Potter set, which had the Patronuses in it, or that's from a Frozen set. I don't remember. But that's just a fun little detail that he's holding up some sort of, I don't know, magical animal of sorts. I don't know what that specifically is, but it looks really cool, doesn't it? So, yeah, just a really distinct and different mock with some really crazy different techniques, crazy cool color schemes, and I don't know, it just stands out from the rest. There's something so unique and different about this, which is why it earned a spot on this list. Also, a lot of people asked for it, so certainly fitting. The other thing I quite enjoy is the fact that it's being supported with an action figure stand here. I don't know what specifically the brand of that action figure stand is, but by all means, if you've got a model store near you or you just want to go on Amazon and buy some, I think it's certainly worth doing because you can very easily put them on your own Bionicle MOCs, and then you can get some cool poses out of it. You could have them actually like floating, or just, I don't know, it's just a nice way of supporting your MOCs without actually having to use Lego pieces for it, and they can be more translucent so it doesn't detract from the MOC too much. I think it's just a smart idea. So not necessarily improving or enhancing the MOC in any way, but I think that's just a fun thing to keep in mind in the future. So nice work there. Let's move on to the next mock. This is by Eero Okkonen, and this is called Dedofiktion Racing Unlimited Warpwheel Cryptobike. So Eero Okkonen is just a god amongst men. Honestly, some of the stuff that they build is fantastic. If you want amazingly well-designed system like humanoid people, he's the king of it. And I just picked out this mock because it was probably my favorite one that he did this year, but honestly, kind of any of his mocks could have been on this list, but I just figured I'd narrow it down to one, and I think this is the one that was my favorite personally from this year. But please check the links in the description, see the other stuff that AO's built. He's very good at what he does. So a lot of stuff to like about this. I thoroughly enjoy this bike, the inclusion of this very large wheel and this sort of smaller wheel with all these beautiful trans blue tiles on the edges there. That just looks cool. But this larger wheel is using some kind of cool like wheeled gear pieces that have come in a few different sets. You can also get that wheel in yellow as well. So just a really nice piece there, and really cool to see it being used on this more sort of futuristic bike. It's awesome. The color scheme on the bike is also very just kind of visually striking, the yellow and the azure and a lot of other sort of bright colors, your pinks and things. It's really, really cool, and I don't know, I really like bikes on Bionicle or just humanoid characters like this. It's just nice to see. So yeah, by all means, play around with your bikes, guys. It's really cool. The hair on this character is also very nice, using some more of those awesome macaroni pieces. That's kind of been a a sort of fairly consistent piece that we've seen across a whole bunch of these mocks in this top 10, these 2 top 10 videos here. So maybe that's a piece to invest in if you don't have any. Also, the inclusion of these balloon pieces here for sort of longer strands of hair is very, very nice. And just in general, such a cool character design. Sort of uses his very typical, head and finger design with some of those tan skeleton hand arm things there. And this boot design is really solid. Really, really cool. I love the little stickers on the edge there as well. Just fantastic. A lot of different dots elements there on the torso, which also just looks really cool. And just a really solid, dynamic looking character with a really visually striking color scheme and just so cool. So, love your work, AO, and by all means, like I said, check out his other stuff. Such a good builder. Second last mock now, this is by Djokson, and this is called Nidhiki the Mistake. So what I love so much about this is this awesome, like, corrupted aesthetic on Nidhiki here. Of course, Nidhiki being inspired by the actual Lego set, but God, I love this take on Nidhiki. Just the inclusion of all of these different trans neon green elements and sort of placing them into like different tires and other sort of like flexible Bionicle pieces or Technic pieces here just creates this awesome effect where it looks like there's some sort of egg or virus or just mutation that's just corrupting the original like dark green like humanoid character here. It's awesome. It's such a unique and brilliant way of illustrating that. So I also love the fact that there is a fair bit of asymmetry across this mock. You know, the one arm has a sort of fairly like larger pincer with all these different corrupted elements to it, whereas the other hand is very different with a few more different fingers and things, but still some claws to it, so it looks a little bit more evil and corrupted and stuff, which is awesome. But yeah, in general, just a great aesthetic to this, brilliant use of asymmetry, and just an awesome technique to perfectly illustrate that really awesome corrupted, mutated aesthetic. Awesome. The final mock now, this is by TorrentAxe97, and this is called Kardas. So of course, this was built for a very, very awesome collab with a lot of really cool mocks. Be sure to check those out. For the Island of Doom collab, building a whole bunch of different Bionicles across the sort of Anika wave of Bionicle sets. Really, really cool collab. This one here was my personal favorite though, and there's a lot to love about it. In general, I love the Kardas dragon, so it's great to see it reimagined, and reimagined in a lot more sort of really well-shaped, well-defined way. There's not a lot of gaps in it. There's just this beautiful sort of organic, mechanical, flowing look all throughout the different articulation points and everything across this character. It's really, really nice to see. I love too the different layers of it as well. Like specifically on the upper legs there, we can see all these different curved system slope elements there that form this very nice pattern. And we can see that continued across on the upper arms as well. And sort of similar designs across the torso and the legs as well, really taking advantage of a lot of awesome looking system pieces there to create this really cool kind of armored effect. But then underneath that, you can see some of those different black tubing elements that form this sort of, I don't know, mechanical underneath of sorts, the sort of unarmored flesh of the Kardas dragon here, which I think is a really, really solid looking design and just looks awesome. Certainly a lot of part spamming across the tail and all the other different body elements here, but I think that's what makes this look so cool. There's this beautiful sense of like consistency and just this organic shaping to it, which is just beautiful. So really, really nicely executed, and the head design is also awesome, and even seeing Vizon up there too, he looks fantastic as well. So just a perfectly executed revamp of the Kardas dragon here with some fantastic LEGO techniques all throughout it. So that's it for this runner-up video of the best mocks of 2021. If you're interested in me doing a 2020 version of this video, going back a little bit, because I actually unfortunately missed that last year, because, well, it was 2020. I had many excuses with all the stuff that was happening in the world at the time. But I'm keen to maybe go back and investigate that. So if you enjoyed these, by all means, let me know and I'll see what I can do, because that could be a bit of fun. Additionally, like I said, links in the description to all the mocks you saw in today's episode, so please check out the other stuff these builders have done. It won't disappoint. You'll see some other fantastic things that they've built, and also be sure to check the links in the description for my own social media and different things there as well, if you so please. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in future videos. Have a great rest of the year, guys, and I'm looking forward to 2022, where we continue this once again and do more awesome top 10 countdown stuff and other awesome bricks and tips and helpful tricks all across the channel. Thank you very much, happy building, and bye for now.